Hello, what is going on? This is my little update and my window capture is not working, so let me try something else here. I'm trying to get the episode itself, or the show up there so I can try and talk about, like, have a visual for when I talk about something. But hi everybody. Oh, okay, looks like this might work. Welcome to the stream. Did I see the trailer for that Wolverine game? Is that real? Is this a real thing? Is this a real thing? Are you joking? Did this literally just happen? What? Oh, okay. I stepped away from my computer for like 5 minutes. Alright, well, I guess we could do a live watching of that trailer right now. Oh, you're 25 minutes ago. Are you kidding me? This really just happened? Alright. Alright, I'm gonna... Bloody and brutal. Oh, cool. Cool. I'm excited to see this now. But hi everybody. Welcome to the stream. I just wanted to do an update because it's been a minute since I made a video over here, and we'll get to why that is in a second. But yeah, also today was the release of Marvel Zombies, so I wanted to talk about that. Now I guess I'm gonna talk about this 2-minute long Wolverine trailer that I'll pull up in a moment. I don't know how I feel about actually showing or playing the trailer on the stream, so maybe we'll 3, 2, 1 it if we want to do a watch through of that really quick. But the main purpose of this update was just to say I'm going to start uploading on this channel once again. I don't know if I'm going to be doing the daily 8-minute videos. I tried to do that over the summer, and I kind of burned myself out on doing them. But I want to go back to uploading as frequently as I can. I'm thinking like an every other day upload schedule is what I'm thinking about. Just because I ran out of topics at a certain point. Let me see about trying to show this trailer on stream itself. I have to use the display capture, which let me get rid of that really quick. I want to go frame by frame on this trailer, but if everybody wants to do a watch along, I'm gonna click play right now. If you want to sync up, just I'll give you a couple seconds to pull it up if you haven't already, if you want to watch along. But 3, 2, 1, playing it now. And I think I will actually show it. But I can't play the audio, just to be safe.
Been fighting longer than I can remember.
Alright. I can't remember. Did we know that this was going to be M-rated Wolverine?
I'd like to say I'm not a violent man.
Oh, this looks so sick.
But I'd be lying. Doesn't matter where I go. How far I run.
All right.
Death's always waiting. Just not for me.
It definitely has that Insomniac universe art style, which I'm glad that they're being consistent with, despite the fact that this is obviously a much more mature game. Oh, cool. Didn't know we were going to be getting other mutants and X-Men in this.
I'm Wolverine.
Well, I guess I assumed that there would be like mutants in there, but I didn't think we would be getting like made. Okay, Sentinels too. Fall 2026 though. All right, nice. I'm excited to play that. Yeah, we can go through that frame by frame in a little bit. I also have the episodes of Marvel Zombies pulled up right there, so we'll do that. And let me also just fix the camera so I'm not being blocked. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I think fall 2026 is a little further out than most people were hoping for, but I guess it's kind of what we expected. Uh, I do kind of wonder, that was a 2 minute gameplay trailer, but uh, I wonder if we're going to be getting like an actual like demonstration of the gameplay soon, because that's kind of what I'm more looking forward to at this point, is just actually seeing how the game is going to be in motion rather than just, you know, clearly a lot of it was actual cinematics. We'll be getting more info in the spring. That's cool. I didn't even know that there was an event today. Uh, but yeah, that's good to know. I was trying to download the trailer for the game, but it's on the PlayStation account, so we might not be seeing that right now. We'll come back to it. But yeah, I'm gonna be uploading every other day on this channel, weekends pending. So at least like three to four videos a week is what I'm gonna be aiming for here. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to get into. More videos coming. But yeah, I wanted to talk about Marvel Zombies. I watched it all earlier, and I really enjoyed it. I don't know what the current consensus is for the show, but I didn't think I was gonna really like it in the lead up, because I'm not a huge fan of What If, but the Marvel Zombies episode was definitely on the lower end of what I enjoyed from that show. But I thought that this people keep calling it a miniseries, but based on how it ended, I don't know if it's exactly a miniseries. I think they might try and get a second season out of this, which we'll talk about later. But what I wanted to start off talking about was the main dynamic. This was actually supposed to be a movie, the Marvel Zombies. I figured because it does have that 2 hour running time, due to Spider-Man, it had to be a series. Is that... I know that that's like partially like because of that Sony deal, but is that just a rumor, or do you have a source on that? Because from my understanding, it was always supposed to be a series. But as I was saying, with Marvel Zombies, I wasn't really looking forward to it. I'm not a huge fan of the Marvel Zombies comic run. I think it's an interesting idea, but it not everything needs zombies, in my opinion. But I did recently read the first couple deceased runs, and I liked those. So I was more open to a Marvel Zombies MCU series that wasn't so much the comic book runs. But I really enjoyed what they were able to deliver here. I think it was a pretty well-made show. They really delivered on making it TVMA. We got a lot of blood and gore in this, but it wasn't too over the top. It was in line with what was in that original episode. But let's talk a little bit about the original What If episode. We get the background, and it's Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's set during that movie, where while in the quantum realm, Janet Van Dyne brings home some kind of virus, and it's a quantum realm illness. I forgot what the original episode called it, but basically just zombies pre-Infinity War. And that original episode took place with the characters being Bruce Banner, who was just sent to Earth from the beginning of Infinity War. I haven't seen that episode in a couple years. I know Sharon Carter, Peter Parker, Scott Lang's head was there. They encountered Vision, Bucky Barnes, but pretty much all of the other major players in the Avengers were dead at that point. So with this show, we kind of come in 5 years later, just like Endgame. We jump 5 years, and we have the newer characters who we've been meeting throughout Phase 4, 5, and 6. So as you can see right here, the show starts off, and the main characters are the Young Avengers, which they never actually call them the Young Avengers in this show. But boy, does this show, in the way it opened, what a missed opportunity it was to not have these three characters team up, and not it. I really just think it was real missed opportunity to not team them up sooner, and that Marvel Zombies is going to be our first big team up of the big three Young Avengers: Miss Marvel, Ironheart, and Kate Bishop, a Hawkeye. Wish we got an answer to where Bucky was during the series, since he did survive the series, just thrown really far away. I'm gonna assume he's probably dead. I didn't. My assumption was that Bucky died, but yeah, we get these three as our intro characters, and I think everything is explained reasonably well of why they teamed up for the most part. They don't give you a ton of backstory, but everything after Infinity War is completely different than the events of the actual MCU. So Ironheart still being a genius, still making, she hacked an Iron Man suit, which we see there, and it's occupied by Friday. Kate Bishop was training to be an archer, as good as Clint Bishop since the first Avengers movie, so that made sense. Kamala Khan, her getting the bangle and her abilities is just kind of, it's briefly explained, but I didn't really feel like they fully justified her being there. But I didn't mind, because her character worked really well in this series, and she's essentially the protagonist of this entire miniseries. I thought they were going to do AI Tony Stark for a minute, like they did in the comics. Yeah, I kind of anticipated something like that, but with so much of what I noticed is that they made the main focus characters the people that they could get in to do the voice acting for the show. And Tony Stark did appear in What If, and I thought the guy who was the Robert Downey Jr. sound-alike did a good enough job. But I think when you get somebody who replaces one of the major players, or somebody that people are going to be more familiar with, like let's jump around and see what we're looking at. So Captain Marvel, for example, they didn't get. I don't think Brie Larson came back for any of the What If episodes, but she was there briefly here and there. Same thing with Icarus from the Eternals, which I thought they didn't really deliver fully on, the idea that the Eternals were present during the zombie apocalypse. And we only get Icarus as one of them. And I thought it was interesting how they kind of work with it. Like, the Eternals are, they're not, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not organic. So they can't get the virus. They're unable, they can't be infected. And I thought that was an interesting way to look at it, but the only Eternal we meet is Icarus, who is in this constant battle with Captain Marvel, which I thought was a really cool idea to kind of explain, Captain Marvel was infected. She's not this unbeatable character, but the reason she hasn't been interfering with the other heroes is because she is caught in this constant battle with Icarus. And the entire area has is named after it. We'll get into the deaths in a second, but yeah, I did really enjoy the show. I think a lot of the ideas were really well done. All the characters that did come together made sense. We got the return of a lot of the Thunderbolts in this show. Specifically, the Black Widow introduced Thunderbolts were major players throughout the entire series. But the other big player in this show that I really thought was underused, didn't really get a lot of explanation, but I can kind of see why, is this guy right here. We get the first MCU, the true appearance of Blade in the MCU. This isn't the Wesley Snipes Blade. This is supposed to be the Mahershala Ali Blade, but they didn't really have a way to. They haven't made a movie with him yet. His character hasn't debuted in the MCU yet. And the creators talked about the fact that when they wrote it, he was supposed to already be in the MCU. We were supposed to have a Blade movie. So instead, our introduction to Blade in the MCU is as an avatar for Khonshu, which is a cool idea, but we don't really know anything about this version of Blade or his background. And it seems like they had the basic ideas of what he would be like in the MCU, but he doesn't really have a character in this show. And I think that comes through. He does a lot of cool things in it. Like, here, let me jump forward to his battle with Ghost. Did I skip it? No. No, maybe I did. Yeah, I'll find it. Oh, here we go. Like, this battle in entirety, it's very cool, very Blade. And there are a couple shots I really enjoyed, too. I don't think it was in this episode, but there's a part where he swings the sword, and we see very briefly, like, in the reflection of the blade, it's Khonshu's head, which was really, really awesome. And that's another thing I think this show does really well, especially compared to What If, is despite having the same limitations in art style, and it uses the same animation as What If did, but it's able to make it look a lot better. Like, it's visually a more interesting show, and there are better shots than everything we've seen in What If for the most part. I think What If does have some cool elements. We'll talk about this episode in a second. But some of these shots just look really great. Like, there's a lot of visual style here. And I think it's got a big leg up on What If itself because of that. And it also has some interesting ideas in there. Blade was a big player in Zombies Resurrection, where he treated this apocalypse as paradise/Disneyland. Yeah, and that's the thing, is we don't really know how this version of Blade would really feel about this zombie apocalypse. If he would be a more lighthearted version of the character. So he's kind of absent of character in this show. But everybody else I really enjoyed. I think we'll get to it in a second. We get kind of the backstory of how all of these newer MCU characters met up without there being an Infinity War or Endgame event. For example, we get Shang-Chi and I can't remember Aquafina's character. Oh, she's got a name tag. Hold on. Aquafina's character. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but they explain how they wind up interacting with this other group of survivors, who is the Katie. Thank you. The Black Widow characters, Kamala Khan, and eventually Baron Zemo and a couple other characters all come together. And the way they're able to explain it really works. One of my favorite details, and something I wish we could have explored a little bit more, is they explain that the Ten Rings gang has been kind of doing this Mad Max wasteland surviving. And this is where I thought the show, like, I was like, oh, is every episode going to be kind of different, like following a different group of survivors, and then they're all going to come together in the fourth one? Which is kind of what they do, but also it becomes more so the first half of the second and third episode are the explanation of what kind of happens there, and then the end of the episode is just kind of continuing the main narrative, which I thought really worked. I do like how Khonshu and the Asgardians are on friendly terms, since they are some of the few gods not to abandon humanity. Yeah, I thought that really worked out well. I really liked the idea that Valkyrie could see Khonshu, but the humans couldn't. That was a good detail. Nice keeping up with the continuity. They could have just blown it right there and just had Khonshu reveal himself to everybody who was present. But that was something that the creation of New Asgard. I was like, oh, does this really make sense with where they leave things off? Which we'll talk about in a second. I'll jump to it. So yeah, we have our groups of survivors, which is all the new cast members for the Avengers. But then in the third episode, we jump back to that original episode of What If and how it ended with Peter Parker, T'Challa, Scott Lang's head, and I think Bruce Banner was there too. I can't exactly remember. Uh, all on their way to Wakanda when Thanos shows up, and he's got a mostly completed Infinity Gauntlet and is recently undead. So, yeah, I really was like interested in how this was going to be handled. In the lead up, I did see somebody talking a bit about how originally this part of the episode was supposed to be more fleshed out, but due to the death of Chadwick Boseman, they weren't able to do that. So the entire part of this episode was done purely in narration from Peter Parker, which I do think works for the episode itself. And, you know, we do get the cool action sequence, but I want to jump to the part I really enjoyed, which was we get that recreation of Thor's entrance in Infinity War with Groot and Rocket. And I was like, oh, all right, this is going to be kind of explained a little bit. And then they just die. I assumed Thor also died here initially. So when they were talking about going to New Asgard, I was kind of like, well, but wait, how does that come into play if Thor wasn't there to establish New Asgard? Like, how does everybody know about it because of the zombie apocalypse? They explain it. Thor is essentially a broken god in this universe. And, yeah, they I thought it was a really interesting way to look at, here he is, how he was handled in Infinity War, how post the events of Infinity War, because there was still kind of a society and more of a human society, the version of Thor you get by Endgame is a lot more human, he's a lot goofier, and it is kind of a criticism some people have for Thor post Infinity War, is that he does become a lot goofier, and that bleeds into Love and Thunder. But this is what would happen if Thor was surrounded by Asgardians following, purely Asgardians who are just celebrating following the death of Earth and everything he loved. He would just truly be this broken and depressed shadow of his former self. And I thought that was a really cool idea. Maybe the rest of the Guardians died on Titan since Peter, Tony, and Strange didn't show up. I was thinking it was either that or they're still out there in space, maybe. Aside from Groot and Rocket, because they were the only ones. Groot, Rocket, and Gamora are the only ones who could have died. Star-Lord, Mantis, and Drax possibly still alive out there. Oh, thank you so much for that happy 35k subs. I didn't see that the first time. Thank you so much, though. Glad you're here. I wasn't happy with the ending, and I'll get to that in a little bit, but I can understand why you wouldn't be happy with the ending. Thank you so much, though. There are more Asgardians here since their population didn't get cut in half immediately after they originally got cut in half. Exactly. That's a good point, too. But I did really enjoy this this interpretation of how Thor would be after the finale of Infinity War and just getting decimated by Thanos instead of thinking he killed him. And I was a little confused as to why Thor wasn't really speaking or anything like that, and then I realized they didn't get Chris Hemsworth back for this, which is fine. He's got his own stuff going on. A lot of the big players didn't come back. Did you see the Wolverine channel? I watched it right at the start of the stream. I think it looks really cool. But yeah, so just this version of Thor, I want to see something similar in the actual like sacred timeline of the MCU. I think it's a really cool idea. I also liked the idea of what they did with the raft. I thought was really cool with having that essentially be like a floating safe haven. And yeah, that makes sense during the end of the world when everybody's trying to survive. And Shang-Chi being partially infected was pretty cool too. But yeah, I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to point out. I do want to talk about the finale and the end of the episode. I kind of did call what would happen with as soon as they got the Nova Corps on there. I was like, yeah, that planet is going to be so quarantined. There is no way that's the solution to this. Um, but yeah, I thought. Let's see. I'm trying to think of characters. The one character we didn't see was Monica Rambeau, who, yes, it wouldn't have made sense for her to get any abilities because the events of WandaVision didn't happen, and that was the continuity that I thought really worked for the show, is that it knew when to kind of force things to happen in this timeline compared to, just making things happen for the convenience of the plot. To be honest, I thought they were going to name drop. I also thought Maestro was going to be the version of Hulk in this. But as soon as they started building it up, I was like, this is going to be something really new and interesting. And I thought what they did with it was a cool idea. So yeah, we got the Nova Corps not really helping, and the heroes from the original What If episode ended up arriving in Carmitage. But something I didn't mention, this is actually the... I'm going to skip ahead to when we actually see the time jump at Carmitage. This is the oldest Peter Parker we've seen in the MCU so far, because he wasn't snapped over the course of 5 years. This is where he would have been at Far From Home if he was allowed to age due to the blip not happening. So I thought it was kind of cool because initially I was like, why does his voice sound off a little bit? After just watching Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and then I put it together like, oh, he's 5 years older. This is the oldest we've seen Peter Parker in the MCU at this point. So he's got to be like 21, 22, somewhere around there. And another thing I have to say, I was I was so relieved that they didn't spring to give him the Iron Spider suit, because I was confident that was what he was using in the finale when we saw the initial video of, I saw that one shot I really did enjoy. Oh, that is so cool. I haven't stopped thinking about this all day. He's even older than Brand New Day, since I'm pretty sure it takes place in 2027, where he'd only be 4 years old. I'm pretty sure that would make him the same age, because if we're talking Infinity War 2018, he got his powers when he was 15, which was 2015, 2016. I'll say 2016 to be safe, because I'm pretty sure Civil War 6 months after he got his powers. I have the timeline right there. I'm going to refuse to look at it. So if he was 15 in Civil War, 16 in Infinity War, he would be 21 by the time of Endgame, which is 2023, if he was allowed to age properly. But he was 16 in Infinity War, 16 in 2023 when he comes back at the end of Endgame, and I was about to discuss the ending. I will let you know. I'll say full spoilers when I discuss the actual ending of the show, instead of just speculating on Peter Parker's age. So 16, he would be 21 by the time of Endgame. So 4 years after... Yeah, he would be 21 in Brand New Day also, if it is set in 2027. Is there going to be another season? We'll talk about that when I actually start talking about the actual resolution of the episode of the series. You don't understand the ending? Okay. So I'm just going to go full spoilers on talking about the ending then. I didn't want to spoil it if you didn't have a chance to watch the ending, but we'll discuss it. So, Wanda's main goal is to increase her numbers so she's able to take on Bruce Banner slash Hulk, who has absorbed the power of the destroyed Infinity Gauntlet and each of the Infinity Stones. And he's just kind of this battery of power who's just kind of holding everything together. So he can fight, he's still powerful, but he's not exactly he can't really go too far. They kind of explain like it would Wanda's forces at this point would overwhelm him. So the heroes kind of step in. They help Hulk. What did they call him? I saw it in there. Infinity Breaker Hulk. They help him kind of fend off Wanda's powers. But Wanda does get through. She was waiting for Kamala Khan to show up. When was the last time Marvel made anything great? I'd say this show was pretty great. Uh, but Wanda was essentially waiting for Kamala Khan so that she could absorb some of the Infinity Stones of power and use Kamala Khan to kind of similar to the Guardians of the Galaxy, kind of absorb some of the Infinity Stones' power using her own, because Wanda is one of the most powerful characters in the MCU, but she's not god level powerful. So the ending itself, she says to Kamala Khan that she's going to be remaking their world and that everything will be in place again. And we kind of see that happen. You know, everything is normal, but we get flashes of reality breaking through. And Riri Williams tries to snap Kamala Khan out of it. So what's going on here? Now, I think this is Wanda bending reality to make Kamala Khan and possibly everybody else who is still kind of alive. I guess Kamala Khan is the only person she really knows. She's kind of using her as a conduit right now for the power of the Infinity Stones, because any living being who has used the Infinity Stones has had to pay a great price. So essentially, Kamala Khan is being WandaVisioned into thinking she's living this normal reality, whereas it's actually still broken by the zombie apocalypse, and Wanda kind of has that control over her. She is still the Queen of the Dead, but she's more... they explain it as Wanda was able to break through the actual infection. Now, it doesn't make total sense, in my opinion, but also it really doesn't need to. But what we know right now, why I think a season 2 is possible, because it does leave off on this cliffhanger. The world is broken right now, but I think what they wanted to do was potentially set up a season 2. But what characters do they really have right now? They have Riri Williams as the only surviving character. Kamala Khan is possibly... yeah, that was another thing. Riri was testing a cure on herself, but she was bitten on the arm. And we see here that she does have some kind of... it looks like she amputated her arm and replaced it with robotics, which is what we've seen a couple of characters do. Scott Lang was infected. He was a head in a jar afterwards. Shang-Chi, the infection was broken off by one of the rings of power, severing the infection from the rest of his body. So we have Riri, we know is still alive. We have Kamala Khan, we know is still alive. Wanda is the Queen of the Dead. Possibly we have some Guardians that are still alive. Some extraterrestrial MCU characters who could possibly still be around. And this is what I think they could do for a season 2 is if the Fantastic Four are coming to the MCU, what version of the Fantastic Four is coming to this Earth 6 this version of Earth 616? I don't think we have a designation for the zombie universe in the Marvel Cinematic Universe yet. I know the comics Marvel Zombies does have its own universe or universes, but this is a separate one. I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is running on a different timeline, which is why the sacred timeline is called 616. And yeah, that's a separate conversation entirely. But I'm wondering about a version of the Fantastic Four who we saw in the most recent movie, Fantastic Four First Steps, coming to this version of the MCU and just being like, oh, all right, well, we were running from Doctor Doom, but the zombie issue seems to be more important right now. So I'm wondering if a season 2 could be Riri Williams, the Fantastic Four, teaming up to kind of trying to stop the zombie apocalypse. And maybe, honestly, they could throw Doom in there as a powerful figure that could go toe-to-toe with the Scarlet Witch. Oh, yeah, I see it in the chat right now. I think Doom will kill the Scarlet Witch during Secret Wars and use the zombies as one of his many armies. That's an interesting theory. That could be possible, because Secret Wars, the comic run, does have its own... They do make use of the Marvel zombies in some way. The credits said Zeb Wells was the writer of this show. Is that the... Sorry. The fight scenes were awesome and the characters were great. I agree. I'm trying to... Oh, okay. So it is the writer of Marvel Zombies, the comic book. Right? No. I'm familiar with some of the comics he's written, but... Okay, Deadpool and Wolverine co-writer, the Marvels co-writer. Hey, it's that guy. Yeah, yeah. I guess he is the writer. I'm sorry. Is there? Do you have any opinions on Zeb Wells? I'm curious to hear your takes. Everything he's written here that I've seen, I've enjoyed. I know She-Hulk is a hot topic of things that people like and dislike. What did you think of the leaked Doomsday designs? Let me pull this up. I'll say this of Marvel Zombies. I liked it as its own standalone miniseries. If they do a season 2 or some kind of follow-up, I want them to have a good idea. I don't want them to do it just for the sake of continuing the story. I think it could end here perfectly fine. I also didn't talk about Yelena's death, which... Honestly, that might be one of the best moments between her and Red Guardian in the MCU, which there are a lot of really great character moments between those two characters, but Marvel Zombies might be the best one. But yeah, let me pull up some of those Doomsday leaks. I'm assuming the ones you're talking about are the so we have the potential... Hold on. I'm trying to pull it up so I can show it on stream. Open image. There we go. We had these one... Is this what you were talking about? The patches that we've seen so far? Yeah. So, I think it's interesting, but I don't think it's exactly... I was gonna do a video of this, but I couldn't really think of a way to talk about what we're seeing here in more detail than just saying like everybody looks great. From the shoulders up. Who do I think looks good specifically, though? I really like what we're seeing for Cyclops. I love that Cyclops is getting a proper costume here. Beast, we kind of knew about. Professor X, his costume is kind of a combination between what we saw in the earlier X-Men movies, and, you can't really blame them for doing a Professor X costume any way they have, because he's not a character that really has a defining look to him. I mean, you get Patrick Stewart in a wheelchair, that's Professor X to me. Uh, Mystique, yes, I will say that also. Hell yeah. I'm a big Mystique fan, and it seems like they wanted to keep those cosmetics as pulled back as they can. One character I will say, Nightcrawler's design, what we've seen of it so far, anyways, natural progression from X2. But I think the best Nightcrawler design we saw was at the end of X-Men Apocalypse, which I thought that was the best Cyclops design we've seen so far too. Sentry, I'm wondering what the justification for him getting into costume is going to be, because we know that the previous Sentry costume was very designed. It was over designed intentionally because that was what it was supposed to look like. Maybe he's going to go back to that, and or this could just all be placeholders for the time being. We don't really know too far. Zeb Wells, I hate his writing on Amazing Spider-Man, and I don't consider him as a good writer. But overall, the show has good characters and was brutal, but the writing of the story is bad in my opinion. Well, I'm curious what you think they could have done to improve the story, though, because I think that the character writing was really well done. Is Zeb Wells the guy who writes self-insert characters for Mary Jane to fall in love with? Is that him? Where it's like Mary Jane's new boyfriend was based on himself. Is that guy? That is him. Oh, okay. Alright, so I can understand why people don't like him for writing on Spider-Man. But everything I've seen, I'm not too familiar. So the way I read comics is I don't try and read absolutely everything, because that would be insane of me to try and do. So many comics release every day, and there's an entire history of comics. I read what people find important. When I hear a run is good, I'll read that. But for example, Zeb Wells was a writer on Brand New Day, like the original comic run of Brand New Day, which I know people don't like One More Day, that storyline, but I thought Brand New Day was a good way to get back to like setting a new standard for Spider-Man, essentially. I swear, if they kill either Thor or Loki before interacting, I will scream. My thoughts are, this kind of gives us, if this is fully real, if this is what each of the characters will look like in the movie, that version of Loki indicates that he's no longer going to be the, and I know people hate this name, but the god of stories, but I can't think of a better name for that character, god of the plot. But this kind of indicates that he will be, if this is true, that he'll be brought back to his god form, his god of mischief form. The God of Stories is a great name. I agree. I think it's fitting because they didn't really give him a name as he was at the end of Loki Season 2. I don't need him and Thor to really interact, though, because I think both of them kind of found their place in the MCU. And any interaction Thor could have with Loki after the death of Loki in Infinity War would just kind of be... It would be fan... What's the word I'm looking for? Fan fulfillment, or... just... Oh my... What is the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it. think straight right now. I need to take a drink of water, though. I've been talking too much without a water break. Fan servicey. That's the word I was looking for. I think that would just be done because people really want to see it. I don't think that those two characters have a lot to learn from one another at this time. I can understand why you want to see it. I just don't know. But there's some reason, there are reasons why I think that this might not be fully real. For example, what we see of Ant-Man here. This is repurposed artwork from the first Ant-Man movie. This is one of the poster designs. And you know, there could be a reason behind that, but I don't know. You can't really trust anything you see from these leaks, though. I thought about that with the cast and costumes. If we get certain lines of dialogue, like "To Me, My X-Men," I mean, obviously that is fan servicey, but if they included it really quickly, that's just kind of something people want to see for the sake of being seen. But it's also something that is important to those characters in other iterations of the comics and the cartoon. I can understand why they would include that. You know, it doesn't really interfere with any kind of plot or character development. But Thor interacting with Loki after Loki's character development in Loki season 1 and 2, and Thor's character development, which I know a lot of people don't really like, but I think the way Love and Thunder ends for his character is kind of a nice, not send-off, but nice place to put that character after all the healing he did in Infinity War Endgame and eventually Love and Thunder. I like how Reed is basically wearing a scientist suit. Yeah, that's a nice touch. I think, I mean, the Fantastic Four I knew were going to have, I was hoping they were just going to have their costumes from First Steps in Doomsday and Secret Wars. And it seems like we're going to be getting that for the most part. But one of the characters I haven't really talked about was Franklin Richards on here, which I saw some people saying that it could be Valeria, which possible, I guess, but I'm not too sure. I think they could have continued with the plot of What If Episode 5 if it was a good plot point that had a potential. It was a good plot point that had potential. I agree, and I think what they did with this show was pretty solid. I did really like it, and I didn't expect to. The other big Doomsday leak, though, was we actually did get the allegedly, you know, what Doctor Doom would look like in the movie. We is this image still on the internet? Let me just type in Doomsday leak. Oh, here it is. I'll pull this up. Open image. Gotta deal with the dumb Reddit. I think that looks great. If this is real, I'm very hopeful that this is exactly what Doom will look like. I wasn't amazed with the mask when they showed it in the post credits of First Steps, but I think this is this is the best version of Doom we've seen in live action, which I know is not a very high bar, but I think it looks great. John Walker also still not wearing the helmet after Yelena made fun of it and called it a hat. Yeah, well, I think one of the things is John Walker as U.S. Agent, the black helmet does look better than that dinky little Captain America helmet that they put him in. But yet, this version of Doom looks so cool, and I hope this is real. This is what we'll be seeing in the movie. If not, though, I can kind of have an understanding. But that mask that we saw in First Steps, it didn't really do it for me. Is that an unpopular opinion? I like everything that movie does. I thought the post credit scene did well in establishing Doctor Doom in his role in the movie and kind of setting that up. But the mask just didn't look great to me. Am I in the wrong for saying or thinking that? I'll pull that up on here right now. Coloring is going to look a little odd, but yeah, it looks very Halloween costume looking. I don't know. It's kind of what we see of it here. It kind of lacks the texture that we see in this image. Yeah, it is kind of plasticky. I agree. And it's a lot more, which I have no problem with it being reflective. It's a steel mask after all, but like that's why I'm not like 100% convinced that this is the real mask that we'll be seeing, because there's a lot of differences here just from what we can see. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong though. Maybe this is just a placeholder mask that they had there on the day, and the mask in Doomsday itself is going to be enhanced by CGI a little bit more. The mask in the movie could be for the 60s aesthetic. That's possible. But I think if that's the case, then the mask we see there would be in Doomsday more, and this look would be it could be the God Emperor Doom that we would see in Secret Wars. That would be my big takeaway. And I think there is potential for that to be true. But I'm kind of curious what they'll do here. I'm really looking forward to Doomsday still. But I think that's kind of all I had to say. Does anybody have any? We'll end this with just doing a Q&A, I guess. Any questions about what I thought about Marvel Zombies, or even just the Doomsday leaks, the Brand New Day leaks? We know who Tombstone will be in the movie, and he was cast, which I have yet to talk about in a video, but I will talk about it. Who is the actor they cast? Let's see here. Oh, not Tombstone the movie. Marvin Jones III. I'm very curious how it will incorporate Doom looking like Iron Man. My thing is, there is a reason they cast him in that role, but I think we're mostly going to be seeing Doom behind the mask, because I think they said Tony Stark's story will be relevant. Tony Stark's story will be relevant for Doom. Yeah, they said the same mask or different mask, same task was an interesting way to look at it. Which Doom, Doom is a villain, but he thinks he's doing good. So, as all good villains are, they think they're in the right. But if there's no questions or any other comments about Marvel Zombies or the Doom leaks, Brand New Day leaks, I think I am going to wrap it up there. So tomorrow we'll probably I'll get back to uploading. I think we'll do a video about probably the Wolverine game at this point. I'll get a little bit more in depth there. But I'll wrap it up on this question. If you can hire a writer to write a Marvel show, who would you hire? It could be any comic book writer. Well, I think this is difficult. I think comic book writers have good ideas for where to take things, and they have great framework and great ideas for where to go for the future of the MCU and movies and everything. But I think screenwriters specifically have a place in the MCU for, writing film and writing a script and everything. I think comic book writers can write scripts. We see that, Joss Whedon is a great example, and maybe not so great anymore, but he was a great example at one point. His Astonishing X-Men run is one of my favorites, and I think you see a lot of his work carry over into his writing in the Avengers. Right now, Zach Kreger is on my mind as somebody who I want to see tackle any kind of property at this point. I think he would have. He's one of the most interesting writer directors who's working in genre film right now, with weapons. He's got that spec script for the Gotham City movie, which he's talked a little bit about, and I think somebody like that would bring a really interesting idea to the MCU. But that's all I got to say right now. That's You put me on the spot right there, and that was the first place my mind went. But I'm gonna thank you so much for joining me while I update everybody on what's going on. We talked a little bit about Marvel Zombies, the Wolverine trailer, a little bit. We talked about it at the beginning of the stream. But thank you so much for joining me. New video tomorrow on the Wolverine game. And yeah, I'll probably stream again in the future, but I'll see you later. Bye.